Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Rana Marupova. I lead Instruction Services Unit here at the University Library. And with me, I have my wonderful team. I see Kate Gerritsen, Emily Simmons, and I have Jen Verhoeven. We're all members of Instruction Services team here at the library. So today we wanted to put our course into the spotlight and show you what we teach in the class and how you can help your students to build on the knowledge they learned in this class, because everything we teach in this class is kind of a foundational. So, and we give that basic important information, and we need you to help students to continue building upon that knowledge. So here's a brief overview for today. So we'll give you the LIB 1600 framework. We'll go into the content, and we also want to talk to you how we integrated AI tools for research skills that help with searching information and doing some research work. And we did have some good collaboration with some courses and departments. We want to talk more about those types of work we did in the last academic year and over the summer. And also we want to share with you some resources that can help you or gives you more information on how we can collaborate together to help students learn those research skills. Thank you, Jan. And before we dive deeper into the content and changes we made, I want to give you a very brief information about the course. The course has been around for quite a while. It has a very long history. So it started in 1890. And in 1917, it became a requirement for all undergraduate majors here at Iowa State. Because it's a requirement for all majors, in the last few years, we have around 8,000 students going through the course every year. So the course is taught in multiple sections, and 10 to 15 subject librarians are involved in teaching the course, different sections of the course. We do have curriculum development group that is in charge of developing content, learning materials for the course, and we populate all sections of the course with the same contents. The students in each section get a very similar experience in terms of learning and the coursework and all that. Since the course has been around for so many years, it has been taught in multiple different formats, obviously. But during my time here in the library, I've been here since 2003, taught the course as a TA and, and as a full-time employee here. So during my time here, the course was taught in hybrid format. We used WebCT, then moved to Blackboard, then now to Canvas. So we taught it in a hybrid format until 2020. And then pandemic changed so many things. And so our course has changed since then too. We moved to be fully online. So the course is now, all sections are taught fully online. And a few years ago, because of the content and course load and coursework, we were qualified to move the course from half a credit to 1 credit. So for many years, the course was offered as a half a credit, half semester. But now it's 1 credit, half a semester class taught online. And next content is here. We like to brag that our course went through quality matter certification, and we got the certified in 2022. So one of the comments that we received during this peer review process by quality matters experts was to add more interactive elements. And so that's what our focus was in the last few years. So we and a lot of interactive hands-on exercises for students to get that experience, even though everything is online. So we try to integrate some exercises so that students get that experience using different tools and doing some searches and stuff. In 2024, we had a focus group interviews with students in the last spring, students who just finished the course. We got feedback from students, some comments, and I'm sure Yen will talk more about that. So based on those students' comments, we spent this past summer working really hard to make some major changes. And with that, I'll pass the microphone to Kate and then to Yen and Emily to dive deeper into all of those changes we made.
All right. So I'm going to give you all a brief overview of what we cover in this course. We have more details in a handout that we're going to make available to you at the end of our presentation. But basically, we give an overview of the basic research process. We've based these modules and the learning outcomes on the ACRL Information Literacy Framework. And that framework is also going to be available in your handout as a link. So to go through these modules very briefly, we start out with Module 1, which just focuses on formulating that research question and picking a topic through pre-searching, which is when students are kind of investigating what they want to investigate, using open web resources and Wikipedia and other things that are readily available to them to kind of get some words that they might be needing to use and an idea of the topic overall so they can hone that research question. Module 2 goes over where to find information. We cover places that students are familiar with first, like the open web again, but we also make sure to point out all of the resources available through library databases and collections that are not available through a Google search. This module also covers how to recognize different types of information and different formats. Module 3 goes into detail on the mechanics of searching and how the students can save time by using searching techniques like filters and Boolean operators, truncation, lots of other techniques that we get into. Our Module 4 focuses on critically evaluating sources for their relevance and credibility. And for that, we like to promote the SIFT method for evaluating sources. And in Module 5, we focus on that ethical use of information, where we help students recognize when and how they need to be giving other people credit for other people's work and ideas. And throughout all these modules, we've sprinkled in a little bit of guidance on when and how much to use some AI research tools in their research process. And we've worked on trying to make the modules accessible in different formats and in different modes, like audio recordings of the pages instead of just providing text. And Virginia, did you have a question?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, I do. One of the things I've been wondering is with the stage of module 1, hopefully I was paying attention well enough that I heard you say like starting with like an initial like Google search. Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah, we use the term pre-searching, which I think we borrowed initially from English 1500 or 2500. And so that term came to us, and that's exactly what you're saying, a light Google search of what your topic is and how you want to focus it.
Yeah, so thank you. My question is because of the changes with AI and also changes with like Google as a corporation, I'm I'm wondering about that stage. Like if it's supposed if we should change it, or if you've, like, I imagine you've had conversations about that, and I'm just wondering what you like, where you are with that. I imagine it's like an ongoing conversation, but I just find it pretty overwhelming. I teach 1,500 and 2,500, and even like when you search for something on Google, it used to bring up a Wikipedia thing right away, which was easy to read, but I don't know, maybe there was a little bit of too much reliance on it. But now it has this AI summary
Mm-hmm.
of, I'm actually not even quite clear of what it is. I think maybe it's like the top search. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but the point is, it seems like that whole process, there's more being done for you that you're not doing when you're doing this pre-search, and maybe things
Mm-hmm.
are hidden that weren't hidden before, and that was already kind of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the stage that I'm actually the most concerned about.
Mm-hmm. We address a few of those concerns in different modules, not just in the first module. So, for example, we do focus on algorithmic bias, search engine bias, and things like that, that students may not know, like you're saying, are kind of baked into those products that sometimes you can avoid, sometimes you really can't. So, we might not be offering solutions to those issues, but we're hopefully at least making students aware of those issues. We also suggest different ways to utilize those AI tools that are, like you say, automatically popping up. If you're using Google, you're getting Gemini's automated little blurb of, as you say, who knows how many of the research, how many of the search engines results. But we also encourage them to step out of that environment and maybe go within, say, Copilot and talk about their research question in a conversation with Copilot and work on maybe focusing it in a different way, narrowing it, getting some alternatives that they could play with, and then approach you as an instructor with to discuss and evaluate some more. We've also got a few resources. We don't mention them deeply in this class, but we do mention using things like Copilot as, say, a semantic analysis tool, which is kind of what Gemini is doing when it summarizes those Google results for you. We focus that on a context that's a lot narrower, and that's going to be in Module 1 when we talk about how to read an academic article. We suggest that students really narrow the sandbox with that AI tool. So they would go to Copilot and upload that paper or access that paper through Bing or the search the browser. I think that's the word. Access the full text of an article through the browser to limit Copilot or the AI just to that environment to kind of go deeper into, do I understand what this abstract is saying? Is this giving me correct definitions for terms and explaining things correctly to kind of test the waters of an academic paper to see if it's an appropriate one for them to use based on the jargon or the reading level of that paper, and whether or not maybe they should find a different resource that they can understand better instead of that one. So I think that's how we might address some of those concerns. Did you have others that you wanted to ask about?
And if I can add quickly, Virginia, to what Kate added, on chapter 1, we set the stage by saying, like there are web search engines and other resources like Wikipedia that you could use to get started with your research. And we kind of say, we use Google as an example. We don't really say use Google as one tool to do, but we do say we use Google as an example, but there are other tools, other search engines and resources that they could use to get started with research and doing pre-searching.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate your workshop here, because I had wanted to talk to a librarian about this. It's like, overwhelming situation. But it also kind of seems to me like there's always been, or at least for ever since I was in college, like this kind of gap between the search engine or like the pre-search and academic searching, where there's kind of like a literacy gap.
Mhm.
And now one concern I have is that AI is being used to fill that literacy gap. And maybe that's good, but in some ways, I think that maybe isn't good because it's like, because of the potential bias and because that work of defining terms and talking to people about them is really, really important for research. So these are the kind of things that, yeah, I'm concerned about as a teacher. And I think we should maybe have more collaborations with the library to have conversations about it.
Well, hopefully we'll be providing them at least a starting baseline for those conversations to happen in your classes. And then we do offer some different workshops occasionally on the different tools related to that searching. But your point about the disconnect between, say, a Google search and the academic searching, we try to address that in Module 3 when we really hit on, okay, this is how you're used to searching in one environment. Now we're going to show you how you might need to tweak that for these new environments to be a part of that scholarly conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say some of your concerns might actually be addressed in some of the changes that we've made to the course.
Yeah.
And so if they're not, though, we should have some time at the end as well to go into a little bit more detail. But I think I can answer some of those questions.
Yeah, Yen, take it away on what's changed.
All right. So just like what Rano had mentioned before, we conducted 4 focus groups with LIB 1600 students who had just completed the class to get some of their suggestions, to get how they were using the lessons and how they thought it was applicable to other classes. And some of that feedback, a lot of that feedback was actually the driving force behind some of the changes that we did to LIB 1600. And as Leslie knows, we also collaborated with other departments to bring in and build in some common vocabulary and content to hopefully provide a foundation where your classes can kind of come in. So, because we wanted to make sure that it would be easier for upper level classes to build on this LIB 1600 base. So for instance, I'm going to show an example here. English 2500, when they did their revision, they shared their assignment with us. And as a result, we created this interactive to give them some familiarity with what their assignments in other classes look like. But then how do you identify the different parameters in terms of what that assignment is asking? And then in terms of your information needs, like what kind of information do you need? How do you find if it's credible? What are you using? What's scholarly versus popular and so on? So this is actually one example of what's built into the course right now. And you can see there's food science and human nutrition in there. We plan on adding other assignments and examples from other classes as well, so that students can be like, oh yeah, I saw that already in LIB 1600. All right, I got this, right? So that was one of the reasons we wanted to do that. We also gave examples and interactives for students to be able to hone their skills when it comes to, for instance, using AI, but using it with a critical lens so they don't just trust what's going on in the internet. Module 4 is about evaluating information using a model we call SIFT, which I actually really like because it's just a process for being able to say, all right, I'm not sure if this source itself is trustworthy and credible. So we're going to do something like lateral reading from multiple sources to triangulate and see whether or not these claims are true. So different techniques that way for them to evaluate. The other thing is we built in interactivity. So this is an example of one of the GIFs that's in the modules. There's many of those that are woven in. They're how-to tutorials to help students be able to use our filters, use the library resources, and so on that way. We also have more visuals. Students asked for more visuals, especially because a lot of students now learn through multimedia. So there are visuals, graphics that are built in. You're seeing in our presentation slides themselves, those cartoon cardinals and things like that. Those are actually AI generated. And so we add some of those in so students can kind of see some of the practical applications that they can use with AI, not letting AI be in charge, but seeing AI as a tool that can, under appropriate situations, augment the work that they're doing. So we also, just like what Kate mentioned, there's also page narration now. So students can both click and listen to the narration as they follow along on the pages. We included videos and there's a page there so that they can click and actually read through the different pages. And then one of the biggest changes, I think, is actually reframing the entire course to give students actually almost a more empowering, active position in their scholarly research. So rather than having students come in, and this was part of what we saw in the focus groups, is a lot of students are like, well, I already do Google. I don't need any of this other stuff. I already know how to do research. And so a big reframe was coming in. We say, you're now a scholar, and scholars do academic research. So the other stuff that everybody else does when they're searching the web, that's what we call armchair research. It's a term that we say that's armchair research. But at the university, you're scholars. You do scholarly research. That distinction really makes it comes back over and over again in all of the modules. So we wanted our students to see themselves as scholars, and that means scholars use scholarly materials, credible, peer-reviewed materials. They evaluate all information sources, whether or not it comes from AI. The point is, you cannot trust the credibility and trustworthiness of any information source unless you go through a process that tells you whether or not those claims are true, whether or not that source is even trustworthy enough for the assignments that you're using. The other thing is, instead of telling students, you must cite and don't plagiarize because you'll be punished, we reframed that conversation to say that citations and recognizing others is a professional practice amongst academics. You're in academia, you're doing academic research. Scholars do this because that's what scholars do. And by doing academic research and engaging in these scholarly practices, they're now participating in the academic conversations within their field. So we've really reframed even academic research, writing a paper, as a mode of discourse amongst scholars and professionals. And I think we'll see, because we're going to run focus groups at the end of this semester as well, I think that reframing will make it even easier for your classes, for students to come in and kind of pick up that conversation when they're making those papers with you. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Kate again.
All right. I have covered some of the ways we've tried to integrate some AI tools and AI discussions into this course, but to reiterate a few, we really try and emphasize when and where using AI tools is appropriate, and we really encourage students to be transparent about that with their instructors. Ask your instructor, when can I use this? How much can I use this? How should I use this? And how should I tell you that I've used this? We also wanted to make sure to reiterate that they need to be the human in the loop, and they need to keep the human in the loop. You cannot assume that because it's an algorithm, therefore it's unbiased, therefore it's correct, therefore it must be true. The biases have been baked into those systems and can be extremely hard to remove. And there's all different types of biases baked into these tools. So awareness of that as well. We also want them to make sure that remember that they are the expert in this. They are the person who's responsible and in charge when using these AI tools. And the output for those tools, they're responsible for the output as well. We want to make sure double and triple times that they check everything that comes out, because the output can be so convincingly false. We do offer a couple of examples of that within there, of some of the new answer machines that are out there. So not just the little blurb you get at Google, but like tools like Perplexity that claim they can just synthesize everything you need to answer your question, not just pull up sites that are relevant to it. So really helping them kind of push the brake on that and wonder about, are they really delivering on that? Is it ethical, and is it appropriate for this this use and this context? I think that's about it I got for that one.
Yeah, and I wanted to add one more thing that we also emphasize, especially in chapter 5, about you know, when is it appropriate to cite and give credit. We talk about the student who uses ChatGPT to make their essay, and we say it's not your work. So it's not ethical for you to just use this as input, because this is not what you've produced as a scholar. And so that kind of comes in over and over again. Is it really ethical if you weren't the one that wrote it? No, it's not. So how else can you incorporate AI in ways that are appropriate? So to kind of feedback on that. All right. Anything else? Shall we go? Okay, next slide. Okay, there we go. Emily?
Yeah, so I'm going to cover some of the ways that you as instructors can build on the foundation that we set in Library 1600. So if you ask students to find scholarly sources or journal articles for a research assignment, you can remind them to use tools such as Quick Search, Google Scholar, and library databases. These are going to be the best tools for students to use to find that kind of information. You can also encourage students to continue evaluating information using the SIFT method or other methods of evaluation you might prefer. I know there are other methods out there like the CRAP method. This is an important step to reinforce, because the ability to think critically about the information students come across in all aspects of their life is vital. We don't expect students to be experts in college level research when they're done with Library 1600. It's just a foundation. But we as librarians are around for students even after they finish Library 1600. So we hope you will encourage your students to connect with the appropriate subject librarians if they need research help in your class. Librarians are a wonderful source of knowledge for both you and your students, and we're eager to help with research questions. You can also add library resources right into your Canvas course, so students can easily and quickly find LibGuides, find their subject librarians, and access databases. It's nice to include these resources within Canvas so students don't have to go out searching for them on their own. And last, you can have a subject librarian come into your class and lead an instruction session tailored specifically to your class needs. They can cover any part of the research process and give direct guidance to your students on how to conduct library research. This is a great opportunity for your students to learn how to use library resources, and it reinforces and builds on the skills learned in Library 1600. And you can schedule a course-related library instruction session by emailing your subject librarian directly.
Thanks, Emily. And in the chat, Paula asked, can you give us a 30-second summary of the SIFT method? Kate just connected in chat a link to the YouTube video on that. The last slide in this presentation has Rano's contact information. We have a lot of resources about SIFT. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, just reach out to us and we can definitely share that information with you as well. Okay. Next slide. Rano?
Yes, just a second. And I'm also Want to put the link to the SIFT to the LIB guide into the chat, where you can find more information on SIFT that we developed for students. Where is the chat? Right here. This LIB guide is available on our library website that has really very brief step-by-step instruction of each elements of the step of the SIFT method, and it's also included in the CELT's new campus-wide template when you request the Canvas shell. So under the additional resources for students, you will see the link to library resources, and you will have the link to the guide that we developed specifically for this. And the guide is called Finding, Evaluating, and Using Information, and the link to that guide is on the chat. And resources, just to give you more information how you can work with us closer and how you continue integrating library resources into your courses and help students through your projects, also through your class projects. So one of the most convenient and the easier thing to do is to integrate library resources into Canvas space that Emily mentioned earlier. Your handouts the handouts that we'll distribute here today will have a link to that space and the instructions how to enable those library resources into Canvas. By enabling this, you will see on your Canvas pages on the course level navigation a link created called library resources, and that page will be populated with the article databases that is relevant to your subject areas. And if librarians developed any research guides in your subject areas, that will be also populated on that page. Students can make appointment with subject librarians through that page, and we have chat embedded into that page too. Basically, if you enable that, that page will be tailored to your subject area, and then students will have direct access to those resources through the Canvas. Second option is in Canvas, if you go on the global navigation on the left red menu, under the help, you will see library, university library. So when you click on that, this space is open to all ISU community members. You will see some information for instructors and for students, but one of the content coming into that space is Library 1600 modules that we just shared with you. That will be in there, so you will always have access to our course modules. The course we teach is very dynamic, so the curriculum group works nonstop throughout the year, every year. And any changes made to the modules, you will have access to the latest upgraded modules through that space. And there are a couple other ways to continue working with us. Those two links will give you more information about how you can work with a librarian. We do have a thing called course-related instruction sessions, again, what Emily mentioned earlier. That website have information how you can request those course-related instruction sections. On these sessions, librarians come into your classroom. They work with you before the session and basically come to the session to talk about whatever requests you have, whether help your students with their research projects or do a literature search, or like work on some bibliographic management tools, or whatever you request. So librarians will come into your classroom, work with your students on those sessions. So these links will give you more information on how to get started with those collaborations. Now we have a few minutes. If you have any questions after the session, please feel free to contact me or any member of my team. But if you have any questions now, we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Our pleasure, Rachel. And if you click on the handout, you'll see it's got a number of resources, common terminology that you may want to pull into your own assignments. And then on the second page of that is an outline of the 5 different modules and some of the concepts that are taught in each of those modules. Again, if you have any questions, Rano's information is on this slide. You can always reach out to her. We'd be happy to share these resources with you as well.
And if we want the 30-second SIFT definition, we can do that now since we have the time. So S stands for stop. Are you being emotionally pulled by whatever you're looking at, the source you're looking at? If you are, that's an indicator to be very skeptical and investigate more. I is investigate the source, look into what people are saying about that source, like who's behind it, and going outside the source to see what who's behind it, what's the authority behind it, and the authority behind the authors. The F is find better sources.
Find better sources.
Yes. Brain fart. Find better sources. So see if you do a search outside, again, that lateral reading, can you find better or more authoritative sources about the topics or making the claims that you see made in that source? And then T is to trace back any of the claims to the original context to find out how they may have been distorted or represented or misrepresented in the source that you're reading.
Wonderful. Thank you for that very fast overview of SIFT. That was helpful for me. I would be curious to know what kinds of assessment activities are involved in LIB 1600, and how do you know that it's working?
That is a great question. We do have 5 modules, and each module has a corresponding quiz. So students read the modules. Quizzes are basically designed based on learning outcomes for each module. Students have, there is a quiz due every week. Students read the modules, do those exercises, and submit the quizzes. They need to score at least 80% on be able to move to the next one. And they have 3 attempts on each quiz. So quizzes are, it is when you have a very short course, which is online and which is large enrollment. So we had all the challenges to make this learning experience for students as authentic as possible and make it relevant to their, to their classes and their research projects. So the quizzes have exercises where we ask students to go out and do those kind of exercises and come back into the quizzes to answer questions. That's the best we came up with, to where we kind of force students to use those tools, so to find searches and find the information, look at it, evaluate, and answer the question. Is this a good information? Why or why not? What tool is the best tool to use? How did you, which search strategy you used, and why it was good and why it wasn't? Those kind of exercises, we hope that they, it's really hard to really watch how they're doing, but we always tell students, make sure you're involved with the content, you're doing your own work, because at the end they do take a final exam, which is done at the proctored environment at the ISU testing center. So the quizzes is used as a learning tool, but also they they need to pass each quiz with 80% to be able to access the final exam, which is done again at the testing center at the proctored environment.
And our final exam has been designed as a hypothetical situation that goes from the beginning of a hypothetical project all the way to the end of, okay, I've completed the project and maybe I want to make a YouTube video about it. So it covers all the stages and has them imagine, if this happened in my research process, what would I do here? Or what would that mean for my research? I can also mention for the honors section of LIB 1600, we have them do an additional project where they have to utilize Zotero, which is one of the citation managers that we offer here and support here. So we have them actually download it, use it, find some resources that would answer a research question we give them, and then we give them feedback on the sources that they chose and put in their group library.
Yeah, Paul, we love Zotero too, because it's free, open source. Students can always carry their library everywhere. So that's how, we've been teaching that to honors. But we also kind of mentioning that to our regular section students that it is available. It's there, it's good to use, good to learn. And we link to the resources where they can learn more about it. But we know students do what they are required to do. So we hope some students use that to learn and for their projects. Yeah.
You mentioned connecting with a librarian in the class, or like, I don't remember if you said bringing a librarian or visiting.
Mhm.
I imagine you mean both, but would it be possible to have like one of you come to the class and do kind of like an interactive thing where students where we do something, but then they also get a chance to talk to you about it and like.
Absolutely. We love to do that. Would be happy to come to your classroom. Just we need to talk with you to know what exactly you want us to work with your students on, and we'll be happy to do that.
I think that would be great.
And if there's a specific project in mind, you can reach out to your subject librarian. They can develop like a LibGuide for them with all the resources, databases, and so on. I know during the summer, a number of us were involved in, I think it was one of the French teachers, one of the professors. He wanted his students to do a pod. And so there wasn't a LibGuide for it. So over the summer, we pulled together and worked with Student Innovation Center as well to put together an entire comprehensive guide on podcasting at ISU. Talking about like, where do you sign up for it? What is the content like? How do you plan it? How do you market it? And all of those things. So that's the other thing is if there's an assignment where you're like, okay, I would love to have just a page where I can just send my students to, those are the things that they only use. You can work with a subject librarian to do that. And that goes back to what Rana was saying before, is those LibGuides then can be embedded in your course. So yeah, they are, Leslie, they absolutely are. The LibGuides, like, oh, go ahead, Rana, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know Dan has been working with you to create that LibGuide for English 2500. You can actually take that LibGuide and it can become a page that sits in your Canvas. So that way students don't even have to go outside of Canvas. They can just go there and pull out those resources and things like that that you want them to have as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Rana just put in the podcasting LibGuide if you want to take a look at that. But any of those are embeddable. And if you wanted one custom for your Canvas, you can connect with your subject librarian and they can definitely work with you on that. They can even come into your class and do a presentation walking them through that if you wanted. The other thing too is I know like for some of the courses like English 2500, you've got multiple students that are coming from multiple disciplines. each discipline has a subject area librarian working in that discipline. So you can even have your students meet with their subject area librarian and and find a topic that is more, customized to their interests as well.
And the link that I just put in the chat takes you to the list of the LIB guides that developed by different subject librarians, and they're categorized by subject areas. Clicking into each of those guides will show you who is the subject librarian for that area, and then you will see the contact information and how to schedule a meeting with the librarian, so you can share that information with your students as well. So we have subject librarians developed research guides for all departments, or for, like we have subject liaison librarians for all departments, and basically they cover the research done in those departments and create those research guides that are getting started guides, and they're more advanced tools to use research in different subject areas, and you'll have access to those on that page. All right, I think it's 11:50 and we can wrap up. If you have any questions, we can stay a couple more minutes. If you don't have any questions now, and if you think of something else later, please contact us. We'll be happy to work with you and give you more information. Thank you for coming. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Right.
Leslie.